And the latest and greatest from Step Brother Sports, part of the Hockey Podcast Network and the Bills Mafia Buffalo fan base platform. We are brought to you by Rich Brow Brewing, located at 5 South 20th Street, Richmond's premier Buffalo Bills backers bar. And folks, we are back after our hiatus from the holiday season. And it was a much needed and restful time for us. And obviously, we hope the holiday season treated you all well, too. Since we last spoke, both the Buffalo Bills and the Buffalo Sabres had an eventful few weeks. The Bills are entering the NFL playoffs as a wildcard seed, and the Sabres, fresh off a recently ended 10-game winning streak, to put them back into contention in the NHL's Eastern Conference. So our guest today, though, will be along for the ride to discuss both the Bills and Sabres and give us some of his thoughts and analysis on parts of the NFL and NHL as well. He is our first Ironman triathlete, and we're really privileged to have on here. He's an Arizona Sun Devil. When he's not doing his training, you can find him over on TSN, Sports Network in Canada, being a self-described resident American hockey writer for the channel. He's also a prodigal son of Western New York and gives his takes on the NFL and the Bills when he can. You often can hear him on WGR's airwaves. We also think he is one of the OGs of including advanced stats and metrics and hockey analysis, as well as making that part of the everyday hockey vernacular. So please welcome to the show, Travis Yost.
Very warm welcome, boys. I have to say, though, like when you said one of the OGs of hockey analytics, I was like, wow, that's kind of cool. It's kind of true. And then I started looking at the grays of my beard, and I'm like, yeah, you are getting up there, brother.
Well, anyway, Travis, it is a pleasure to have you on here. How'd your holiday season treat you?
Great, other than being sick, which I was crying to you guys about 5 minutes ago. But otherwise, it was a great break. I'm actually it's kind of weird, not intentionally segueing into hockey stuff, but I always feel like the turn of the calendar year is really when hockey gets like front and center, especially for even for casual hockey fans. But I feel like the NHL really takes up a lot more of the oxygen in a good way once the NFL kind of moves to the sidelines and just becomes a playoff-oriented format. And this is quite frankly, like I'm a sicko. I'll watch a blues game in the middle of October for the fun of it, but I even catch myself watching more, especially January onwards. You start getting excited for the playoff race and everything.
Absolutely, especially with the Olympics around the corner too.
Exactly.
And NHL players coming back, it is going to be front and center on everybody's television, finally, for the first time in what feels like forever. So, again, pleasure to have you on here, Travis. But anytime we do have a guest on here for the first time, we always like to go into their backgrounds, whether it's their favorite sports memories, things of that nature, just like how they got to be where they are. So tell us, Travis, what are some of your fondest sports memories? Anytime, any sports that you can obviously like come to mind immediately to you, and how have you gotten into the role that you're in today?
Man, that's if I could give you like a top 5 favorite sports moments. I will say right now, one of the most recent ones is actually the picture in Carl's background, the Allen dive in the snow, which was like, to me, it wasn't like the most, high leverage, like, big play moment ever, but it was like, that was some cool stuff that I just witnessed. That's up the list. Randomly, this is a random, like I was a young teenager, maybe if that, maybe 11, 12 years old. And this is really going into the archives here, but I was watching live randomly because I was not a coincidence. I was sick. And I was on the couch as a kid does when he's 11, 12 years old, just watching nonsense. And the NBA was on TNT. It was the Rockets Spurs game. And it was the game that Tracy McGrady scored 13 points in 30 seconds. And to this day, if you haven't seen it, go back and watch it. It's like one of those like singularly most breathtaking, like there's only one guy on the planet who could have just done what I just saw there. And then most importantly, Bills generally, I don't know which part of my Bills era I love more, which was the sick watching of the drought years when you were like, man, Brian Mormon, 52-yard punt. That was beautiful. Yeah. As you're down 31-3.
All-star baby. That's our guy.
Yeah, like footballer versus, the last 7 years of like, this is so great. There's insanely high pressure. I mean, you even feel pressure as a fan watching this team. And by the way, you're going in as the most high-pressure 6 seed in the history of wildcard, the Bills this weekend. So, I'm a classic New York sports fan. I'm out west here in Salt Lake City now. I've been for the past few years. Love it out here. As much as I love New York, not moving back to New York anytime soon. And career-wise, like the hockey stuff specifically, the last question you had, been doing hockey analytics for a very long time. I'm really gonna date myself, but this started purely as I was a nerdy college student into math and was like, I was in my Calc 2 courses, and I was like, started noticing that there was basically zero footprint in the modern hockey analytics world. The same way NBA was exploding. Baseball was already 10 years, past where they had gotten. NFL was exploding as well. And the NHL felt so cavemanish. And I started doing it purely as a hobby. And then through that, started meeting a lot of people who ironically work in hockey today, GMs, AGMs, guys who really put their entire career and livelihood into it. And I've been doing this since 2008. Hockey Buzz, Sporting News, local publications like the Ottawa Citizen, Toronto, and then joined TSN in 2014. Best employer I've ever had. The only kind of crapola I ever give TSN is I know like my articles get second tier treatment in March when Darren's breaking like the 9th trade of the day, but they love in August. All the important guys are on vacation, and I get to do all the crazy stuff that all the long form stuff that only hockey sickos are reading. And quite frankly, it's kind of weird. I work for a mega publication at TSN. A lot of your fans are going to be casuals, but my audience is entirely the sickos, the guys who can't go to bed at night without knowing what the on ice shots were for Alex Tuck in a random game against Vancouver, right? Like that's and you're all sick, right? I get that.
Yes, we are.
Circle. That's Travis Yost. That's how I came to be. I just happy to be on with you guys.
I love that. I love that. If I can, you made a perfect segue for me, Travis. So anytime we have, like Chris Mass talked about, a guest on for the first time, besides going into your background and kind of what brought you to, where you are in your career, I like to do a degrees of separation segment. And so I love that you brought up Hockey Buzz. So I would say circa 2005, being those hockey sickos, hockey junkies that you talked about. Chris Maz is probably a junior. No, he's a sophomore in high school. I'm a junior. I was a year ahead. I could still vividly remember skipping school, and this became a tradition for me on NHL trade deadline day, fanatically refreshing a collection of hockey rumor sites, including HF boards, Hockey Futures boards, Specters, and of course, Hockey Buzz, one of your past gigs that you talked about that helped build your portfolio. I have to say, being one of those guys, and I'd love to hear your opinion on this, I feel that Eklund has always caught more than his share of hate from internet trolls. What's up with that?
Yeah, I had an interesting run there. They always treated me great, number one. Number two, I think people – I'll defend the site and him specifically on one very specific point. I don't think people realized how insanely popular that website was. Not even by hockey standards. I would even say more so by sports standards. And it fed a rabid appetite of hockey fans in a way that it sustained itself for probably a decade, if not a little bit, about a decade. Yeah, maybe a little bit longer than that. And I know they're still running. They still got a bunch of guys producing there. But I started there, and I'm prideful. Like I put a lot of work into it, and I put a lot of good work into it. And for what they were paying me as a college student, we're about the same age, by the way. I graduated high school 07, 08. So we're about the same.
All right.
And, they were paying me a few $100 a month. I'll just keep it at that. But like as a college student, we call that beer money. Number one. Number two,
absolutely.
I had the greatest college job. We're so far, off the rails here, but I had the greatest college job. I went to Arizona State, and my undergrad job, I was a writing tutor at this place called the Writing Center on campus in Tempe. So I would walk over from a dorm apartment or whatever, and I would just tutor. I just work with like football and basketball athletes predominantly, or ESL students from South Korea, Japan, China. But like it was like, hey, let me help you write a paper, and right, great. And because it was certified, and you had to have minimum credentials and qualifications, it was paying like $15 an hour. This is like 2009. I was awesome. I'm like minting money. So anyway, that was a great. There's parts of my life where I'm like, man, I go back to like 2009. It was not the greatest hockey watch 2009, but it was very great for Trav individually.
There you go.
Awesome.
So love that. Let's jump right into it with some Sabres and Bills content. Just quick update right there. Zach Metzen's first NHL goal
First one.
just a little bit ago. Yep. So solid goal right there. But anyway, the Sabres. Currently, like we were saying, they're up 4-0 on Vancouver with about 10 minutes left to go. Vancouver's on a double minor penalty after I think Tage Thompson made a guy bleed with a high stick there. But needless to say, they've been quite the ride. Rough start, kind of an inconsistent play to kind of begin the season. Numerous injuries pile up and down the lineup and in net too. Finally, to the enjoyment of many in the Saberhood, Travis, Kevin Adams relieved of his duty just a few weeks back. In steps Jarmo Kekalainen. And the Sabres proceed to get out of the basement of the Eastern Conference, turn into a wagon with a 10-game win streak, tying a franchise record. They got kind of their behinds handed to them this past week. There you go with Vancouver getting 4-1 on that power play goal right there. No shutout for UPL. But anyway, they get their behinds handed to them by Columbus this weekend, a little bit of a humbling to kind of prevent that franchise record from taking place. But a couple more stats I found right there, which I thought were interesting. Their shooting percentage is still pretty low, 8.7, number 23 in the league so far. Their PDOs, the kind of near league average as far as like puck luck goes. Penalty kill still looking strong at number 2. Their Corsi 4, middle of the pack, right around that 50% range as well. But Travis, since your wheelhouse is really advanced metrics, like we talked about off camera right before we got started, what are your takes on the Sabres at this point? Is any of their play truly sustainable throughout the season itself? And can the team, like they're responding tonight, continue to make a push into the playoff picture and maybe, just maybe, break that 14-year playoff drought?
Short answer is yes. And for someone who gets something wrong 19 times a day, I'm going to victory lap this one. Right before they went on their winning streak, I was on GR with Chopin Bulldog, actually. And by the way, side note, little cheating here. I had just watched Josh Allen get sacked 75 times in Houston and actually paid to go to that game. And I got asked a classic like Chopin Bulldog question, which was like, between these two teams, who would you have more confidence in? On one hand, you've got a team that wins 12 games every single year, always in the playoffs, best quarterback in football, blah, 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 blah. Another team you have a perennial disappointment. No matter what the scenario is, they will disappoint and fall on the rake, right, or step on the rake. And I remember saying, and I hedged it a little by saying relative to like their goals or something to that effect. But I actually thought the Sabres had a bit of a better outlook. And there's one specific reason why. The talent across the roster is deeper, more you feel it more at every position group. And quite frankly, going to your Kevin Adams point on the Sabres piece, I would argue and would to this second argue the reason Kevin Adams lost his job is he never found a goaltender. I mean, that's it, full circle, right? This team has been talented enough for, I would say, 2 years, maybe even 3, to pull themselves back into at least the playoff cut line, at least the fringe of the playoff discussion, if not the 8 seed, if not one of the wild card seats. And they never had any goaltending. And so, it kind of been like you're banging the drum to the same chorus, and fans get sick of hearing it. And I would as well. But the classic offseason question of is this the year for the Sabres? And it's like the 900-pound gorilla in the room is like, well, tell me what a journeyman in Alex Lyon and Luukkonen are going to give you. Luukkonen horrendous for the first month of the year, and now he's turned it around. Tell me what they're going to give you, and I'll tell you what this team can do, right? And that's, quite frankly, it's the reality of probably 24 teams in the league is you get outperformance goaltending, you're going to make the playoffs. You get underperformance goaltending, you're going to miss the playoffs. Sometimes it is not any more nuanced than that. But I would argue this is the first year that they've actually gotten stable goaltending in quite some time. And by the way, you mentioned it earlier on the stats. To me, the biggest, I don't want to say it's not a leading indicator, but the if you could stamp a piece of paper and say this is a reason why the Sabres are in the playoff race right now, is they have massive outperformance in one area, which is the penalty kill. The penalty kill is giving up an obnoxiously low rate. I think I looked at it. It was it was below 5 goals per 60 minutes, which is
first in the league for a while, maybe second now. It's obscene.
It's the penalty kill has been unbelievable. And so when you look at, and just in contrast, think of the nominal here, the Sabres are 12-ish goals. I don't have the latest numbers from the Canucks, but it's 12 or 13 or 14 goals. Once you count their shorthanded goals for, they're 12 or 13 or 14 goals in the red on the penalty kill. The Kraken are 31, 32. I mean, you're talking about a 20-goal gap halfway through the season. And if you go by the logic of 6 goals, roughly, it's a little bit more now, but 6 goals net equals 1 additional win in the standings, which is a reasonable approach. based on the way goals are scored and points are allocated. The Sabres, if from just their penalty kill, are approximately 3 wins better than you would expect them to be, all other things equal. And to me, like, not a lot of time is spent on special teams, but they are so notably and increasingly important in the higher scoring era. Last thing I'll get on this point, because one of my favorite TSN articles that I wrote about a year ago was how important the power play had really become in even the last, really the post-COVID era, where scoring has taken another step up. Power plays have become a meaningful predictor and differentiator in terms of haves and have-nots, playoff contenders versus pretenders. Like, if you look at a year-over-year correlation of teams' relative success on the power play versus the frequency they make the playoffs, it's increased over time. And it makes sense because you have more skill throughout the league. There's a lot of reasons for this. More skill throughout the league, higher goal-scoring league, an officiating book that's kind of skirted a little bit more offensively with the goaltending, equipment changes, and the like. But just think about everything I'm saying. If having a great power play is important, the alternative is also true, which is, like, if you can somehow stymie these great power plays around the league for a half season, that's going to give you 3-4 wins in the standings, which, by the way, is 6 to 8 points by NHL standards. I mean, that literally can be the difference of finishing 10th and 11th versus 7th and 8th. So full circle, Adams never found a goalie. It's almost ironic that they're now getting goaltending the moment he was walked out the door. But otherwise, by the way, last final point. The reason why I've been bullish on the Sabres, and in fairness, I was wrong even a year ago, right, was they persistently have shown over the last 2-3 years, really since Tage Thompson became a player, that's kind of where I draw the line in the sand. They have either played to break even or even marginally outscored teams at even strength, which is the single most important indicator you have for a team and their long-term fidelity as a competitive team. Teams that are getting outshot, outchanced, and outscored at 5-on-5 routinely over time see those results deteriorate. And the Sabres were always competitive there, but it was always, they have no power play. They have absolutely no goaltending. The penalty kill's 31st in the league, whatever the case is. This year, you don't have any laggards. You've got a core strength in the penalty kill, and they're still scoring at will at 5-on-5, which is fantastic. And the Atlantic Division is garbage. So another reason why you should bet on the Sabres.
Yeah. More on that later, too.
Yeah.
I think I got a similar question actually about the Sabres, ironically, a couple weeks ago. And I was just thinking about it. And I think I started with, yes, because the Atlantic Division is garbage. It is so bad. I mean, think about this final stat. The Sabres are 9 goals better now, I guess, with the Vancouver goal. 9 goals better than the Sabres. The Sabres are 9 goals better than the Red Wings over the course of the season. The Red Wings, who have been sitting first in the Atlantic for the entire season, 54 points, seem like a relatively sure bet to make the playoffs just based on the points they've banked. Sabres are 8 or 9 goals better on the season. Think about that.
Insane.
Yeah, that's a good point, Travis, too. I did want to talk a little bit about the Eastern Conference. Like, this year has been one of the craziest in recent memory. And I know there was some national media publications that had the Sabres in the playoffs. There was even some that were as bullish as saying that they would be a top 4 seed in the Atlantic. I know that I myself, and I think Chris Maz, we predicted that they would break the streak this year. But just looking at the standings now, I know we're about 40 games in, so we're about halfway through the season currently. And going into tonight, we were basically the Sabres were 3 points out of a wild card, but also shockingly 3 points away from being last. So you have all these teams that are really just in a logjam at the moment. So aside from maybe the Lightning, the Panthers, there's really no clear front runner in the East this season. So why do you think that is? And conversely, in the Western Conference, the Sabres, where they are with 46 points heading into tonight and looking like they're going to be headed to 48, they're in the top half of the West. So why do you think that is, the contrast between the two?
It's a phenomenal question, and I can get into a 20-minute rant after this about why the current playoff format sucks, because it's very related, but I'm going to set that aside for a minute. So one of the reasons I've been bullish on the Sabres, like jokingly but also very serious, is the Atlantic Division was due for a weakening. The last 24 months have been blinking red lights screaming that the guys who have ran this division for a very long period of time are breaking down. The Bruins had arguably the longest run of success any of us at our age have witnessed. I get that it only equated to 1 title, but every single year a playoff team, basically for almost 2 decades. It was a ridiculous run of performance by the Bruins. Guess what? They got older and a lot of guys retired. Tampa Bay, you've got to, and I'm going to come back to them in a minute. You've got a roster very much 30 plus, especially a lot of their core players. And they've been trying to replace them piecemeal over time. One of the most well-run organizations you'll find in the NHL, but hard to say that they are the equivalent of the team we saw in 2019, for example. The Toronto Maple Leafs, I mean, clearly in a retool mode, whatever you want to call it, doesn't really matter. I mean, these are 3 teams, and you joke about the Leafs at your leisure. I mean, feel free. This was a guaranteed playoff team every single year. So you're clawing points back out from all 3 of those teams right off the rip. And then you get the offseason where the Florida Panthers say, we're not going to have Kachuk, we're not going to have Barkov. And even though every single one of us knows the Panthers are a serious contender, it's entirely this season based on when they can get healthy and what it can do. Because they have looked like a relatively average team because in large part their depth has been challenged. So that usually underpinned a lot of what I would say was not just a Buffalo-centric argument. I made similar points about, wrote about this summer, that you've got this triumvirate of Buffalo, Montreal, Ottawa, who have been investing in the lineup for years. And with all 3 of those teams, there is clear and obvious talent at both positional groups. I mean, you look at like Tim Stützle and Brady Tkachuk in Ottawa. You look at what Montreal has done on their blue line, and you just look at how the Sabres can roll out a top 9 that is relatively seamless and high skill. Like you just see what the years of painful and quite frankly pathetic rebuilding has yielded in terms of prospects for these teams. But it was like you can say this till you're blue in the face until you actually take those points from a Toronto, from a Boston, from a Tampa. It's just all talk. It's all nonsense. Like you actually have to climb out of the gutter a little bit. This is the first year where I think you've actually started to see those legacy teams really take a step back. And the one thing I think is very telling about this division, I just think there are a lot of average teams. I don't think these teams are I don't think there's a lot of bad teams or weakness in the Atlantic, but the ceiling is so limited on 7 of the 8 teams. If you look at just goal differential by team and say, I'm going to set the points aside because, quite frankly, even halfway through the NHL season, points can be a little bit misleading, Detroit being a good example of it. If you look at the goal differential of every team in the Atlantic, it's like plus or minus 5 goals from 0. I mean, these are average teams that on average are winning a game, losing a game, winning a game, losing a game, with the exception of Tampa Bay. The Lightning are 32 goals to the upside, which is one of the better numbers in the league and would be one of the best in the league if the Avalanche weren't like plus 4,000, whatever the hell they are now. But that's like when you're talking about 3 teams minimum, and we learned Florida would be 4, that are saying, hey, we're willing to throw up 8 standings points as a jump ball to the other 4 teams. Who are the 2 teams that are going to take it? And it looked early and often like it was going to be Montreal. Ottawa's goaltending has been a complete disaster this year. And now it's starting to look like, hey, Buffalo wants a piece of that conversation too. And I think the Buffalo, Montreal, and maybe even Detroit, let's see how the second half of their season goes, that jockeying between those 3 teams, I think is going to be fascinating.
So, friend of the show, Chris B, chiming in with that. Yeah, pretty funny to see Tampa Bay at plus 32, then Colorado double that essentially and more.
They have Colorado, if they finish, now granted, like I always make these small sample size caveats, but like I don't feel like you need to at halfway through the season. If Colorado's current margin of victory holds, or let's say goal differential per 60 minutes, it will be the best number of the statistical modern era. So roughly the last 20 years, this Avalanche team is pacing to be the best team ever. And that includes, I mean, I remember like the Nerds loved the Sedin team in 2011. They were, running circles around teams. A couple Golden Knights teams that were fantastic. Bruins teams when they got the crazy Tim Thomas here. But like Colorado's better than all of them. Quite frankly, if I'm a Western Conference fringe contender, I'm like, why bother with the trade deadline? So I can get my teeth kicked in? I don't know.
Hey, quick update on the Sabres. Josh Stone, empty netter, kind of sealing that game right there, 5-3. The Canucks made it a little bit interesting. So getting within 1 goal on there. But still, yeah.
The Canucks or the Sabres? Usually it's the Sabres that make it interesting.
Yeah, I was going to say the Sabres.
They haven't been blowing leads at all. That's one of the reasons why they've been doing well this year. They've been holding leads well.
Letting the people sweat a little in KeyBank Center tonight.
Yeah,
all right.
It's
Carl, you're up next.
Nice to see some empty net goals.
That's right.
It's good. It's good to see that playing overhead. Get some of those pat some stats for the boys. Love to see it, but it's obviously we're lots of talk about. Where we're at. We just came off 10-point streak, which was, I think, 2 or 3 of those games were part of Adams, but obviously lots of positive buzz on Kekalainen. I mean, maybe your statistics can kind of like loop into this a little bit, but definitely curious your take because, obviously as a fan, feeling that momentum shift from getting rid of Adams and having Kekalainen and adding in some actual experienced hockey operations people feels good. And then to see a 10-game streak and, the boys do look like they got some swagger, right? Like they're holding the leads, they're putting some points up. Like some of the plays I'm seeing, like, I don't know that they were doing that before. I even saw Owen Power do some pretty cool stuff. Like, so how much of this is maybe that, can you track vibes? Is that part of your statistics, Travis?
If you ask me, the number one thing I've learned in the last, and I mean this, the number one thing I've learned in the last 18 years, vibes is the 2025 version of it, but like winning begets winning. Like I truly fundamentally believe that because if you guys have ever, like you start thinking about like even just hobbies, I'm the shittiest chess player on the planet. I concede that right now, but I've been playing chess for the last year and a half, usually when I'm on a bike on a long ride and just losing my mind. But like when you're playing chess well, you're like, I want to keep doing this. And you're getting a little more into it, right? It's the same thing for any hobby, sport, skill, competition, whatever the case is. The opposite's also true, which is like losing cultures are very erosive. People who don't like going to work because there's acrimony in the law. Like there's acrimony at your job. Yeah. You drive into work, you're like, today's going to stink, self-fulfilling prophecy, whether it's true or not, doesn't matter, right? Those typically are not your most productive days. Why would it be any different professional athlete? Because they're paid more. They're still human beings at the end of the day, right? And I think it's very much a two-sided coin, right? And it's why I think one thing that I've learned over years, especially getting to interact with people in positions a lot more, even within teams that are losing or perennially losing. It's why they talk so much about locker room culture. It's not like this outsized influencer that completely dictates the fate of a team. It's more so we want to stay within our lane, right? We don't want to make work, this job, this sport, which we love doing, so frustrating, whether it's team dynamics, just a lack of skill and, star players getting frustrated, whatever examples you want to come up with. If people aren't enjoying showing up to work and enjoying performing, you're going to see that degrade in the results. It's true for any job on planet Earth, and hockey players are no different. All this to say, do I know if this had any impact whatsoever? I have no idea. But what I do know, or what I do believe, is that as teams start building, start kind of threading success, like you got to have the talent to underpin it, right? Any crap team can win 3-4 games in a row, right? But what's going to happen, right? The reason why we are kind of starting to get bullish, I think the Sabres community, but even like, national observers or, media of other teams watching the Sabres, is there's clearly skill and talent on the roster. This isn't like some fluky, 1 month outperformance. Like you see the skill, and that's coupled with like, we're not morons. We know what's been the last decade in Buffalo. It's you go there, you're going to win 26 games and you're going to get a long summer, right? And like there might be a player or two who loves that. Most hockey players want to compete. They want to score goals. They want to dominate games. They want to play into the playoffs. Like that's what drives them and motivates them. So even small win streaks, like, a 10-game win streak, right? Does it really matter in the grand scheme of things? No. But does it matter innately because it becomes this new, like, hey, I want to put that extra step in, that extra mile, and whatever the case is, to build up to that 11-game win streak, which they didn't get, ironically. But I think there is a big element to that. By the way, I will say, putting the nerd hat back on, if you can,
we're always here for that.
If you can sustain that element of it, it will start showing up in the results. And that's like the beautiful thing of being able to quantify so much is like, if you really believe in team culture, a good example, let's go cross sport, right? The Philadelphia Eagles debate, are they good? Are they terrible? No one has any idea what they are, right? But it's like every single person gives them latitude and credence because no matter how horrific they look on tape and no matter what you see for a quarter or a half, they can't complete a pass in the second half, whatever the case is, they've built this pretty impressive resume. And the record and the point differentials are still, okay, they may not be number 1 or 2 in the league, but they're always near the top of the NFL cut line. And it's like, I'm going to bet against this team. Now, I might bet against them in the playoffs when you're playing real competition, but like, Were the Eagles ever going to miss the playoffs this year? Probably not. And I do think they're reaping the benefits of that. Washington hockey versus football is another great example of that, by the way.
There you go. Again, thank you for that, Chris B. But moving on. Before we get into a little bit of Buffalo Bills on here, let's do a quick word from our sponsor, and that'd be DraftKings Sportsbook. So the jaw-dropping moments that make hockey. Experience them all with DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NHL. Hey, you folks in Missouri, listen up. DraftKings Sportsbook now live in the Show Me State. So current lines for Bills Jaguars this week. Shockingly, Bills are sitting at -1.5 road favorites. So likely a nail-biter matchup against those Jaguars. So again, likely to be probably a very annoyingly close, as the Bills like to do, whether it's in a win or a loss these last few years. So just keep that in mind before you make your bets on there. The Sabres were -1.5 against Vancouver. So if you picked them, that was a pretty solid bet. You had to get probably a little bit more over that just to break even there. But new customers, this one's for you. Bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $200 in bonus bets instantly. So download the DraftKings Sportsbook app and use code THPN. That's code THPN, as in the Hockey Podcast Network, to turn $5 into $200 in bonus bets if your bet wins. In partnership with DraftKings, the crown is yours. If you have a gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER. In New York, call 8778-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly. On behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort in Kansas, pass-through of wager tax may apply in Illinois. 21 plus. Age and eligibility varies by jurisdiction. Void in Ontario. Restrictions apply. Bet must win to receive bonus bets which expire in 7 days. And those are minimum odds required. For additional terms and responsible gambling resources, see dkng.co/audio. Limited time offer. Copyright NHL 2025. And now back to our regularly scheduled program.
Very well, as always.
Nice work.
All right. Getting to the Bills. I know, Travis, you always have some solid takes on the Bills lately with your I saw a couple of tweets recently that you had some good takes on the wide receiver room, but I know Sean wanted to kind of tee off on this.
Yes, Travis. So as a native Buffalonian, like the three of us, minus the horrendous playoff losses, it's been, for the most part, a breath of fresh air to some extent in the last couple of years. Obviously, with Josh Allen at the helm, we talked about, and the team regularly making these longer sustained playoff runs compared to the drought years, that preceded that. Now, that's not without frustrating moments, of course, too. For my money, this season has been very full of inconsistent play calling by Joe Brady, up and down nature of the defense, although it's seemingly trending up, down the stretch here. But also Brandon Beane insisting in the offseason that the wide receiver room was good enough. Your tweet about a recent Sean McDermott presser described how the wide receiver room scab continues to get picked by McDermott, as he glowingly talked about Jacoby Myers on the other side of the field for the Jags leading into this game for wildcard weekend. So with that said, what are your thoughts on the team this season, and more so, what another playoff loss, especially one that could happen this week or maybe even next week after maybe a 2-game and exit, could it cause a seismic shift in the coaching or in the front office? And what are your thoughts about that?
Yeah, I would say a walk down memory lane, but it wasn't really filled with great memories. This year was, it was got to be the most frustrating 12-win season in history, right? And I think there's some context there, right? I think they beat 2 teams with winning records. Like, they were trailing in almost every single game. And I think, Bills fans for a while got accustomed to, all right, it's 2:30 Eastern. The Bills are up 31-6 on the Dolphins. I'm going to go do something with the rest of my day, right? And that just was not the case at all this year. I think I'm the coaching front office Bills thing first. I have thought, my 2 cents, that the most single headline story, if you put a headline on the story of this season, whatever ends up happening in the playoffs, Sean McDermott and Brandon Beane are clearly of not the same mind when it comes to this roster. And let me just go to the McDermott piece first. His detractors, fair or not, will say he's been ginning this up because it's a shield for him. He's a very winning coach, and if he can say, hey, look, you were the guy who said everything was good. But he has no less than 10 times, made a point in some way, shape, or form to basically lift others up or kind of nitpick at his own without doing as much. You mentioned in my opinion, kind of going out of his way to be like, Jacoby Myers, what a stud, paraphrased. How about when McCole Hardeman was on the field for 3 plays and you could just tell he was, whether it was editorialized or he really felt it, like he was like, wow, we just such a weapon to have. And it's like, it's McCole Hardeman. He's been bouncing around the league for 5 years now. It's, I get it, he's fast. I took that originally as like, hey, look, he's criticizing the speed in the wide receiver room, which I think is totally fair. But if you kind of couple everything together, it all boils back to a week 7, week 8. I think it was right at the trade deadline. Brandon Beane said explicitly that he thinks he has a championship roster. And Sean McDermott, when asked the question, literally said, I love these guys. And the most non-answer of all time. And to me, like, I get you can play it a little more coy when you're the coach and not in charge of roster building, primarily. You're not the accountable executive. But, I mean, he just flat out didn't answer it. And it's like, Sean McDermott has been, for all his flaws, he's been very, I think, reasonable and clear in his media hits and, like, talking about what he thinks over the years. Like, I think he's done a good job of that. And, like, he clearly went out of his way to be like, yeah, this roster's okay. Like, and I got to say, I feel the same way watching him. So, like, I have had my, CBS receipt list long of frustrations with McDermott over the years and the playoff criticism, 13 seconds, timeout management earlier in his career. Like, there's a sea of criticisms here.
Timeout management is still a challenge this year.
I cannot look at this roster in good faith and say this is a top 5 NFL roster. They're not. And even when they're fully healthy, which is never, they're not top 5. And that is the part where I'm like, whether you think McDermott's long overdue to go or, hey, he's a great coach and he's been handled the raw deal, whatever you believe in between, like when you really evaluate the talent of this roster outside of the quarterback room, it's pretty thin, it's pretty old, and it's pretty injured. And unfortunately, that stinks, and it makes you a little nervous playing against a Jaguars team that they may not have, the absolute blue chip of blue chips at quarterbacks, but the rest of the roster looks more talented than the Bills at 2/3 of the position groups, if not more. That's how I feel.
There you go. Chris B, again with the question, do you think McDermott's out if the guys lose to Jacksonville? I say no. I mean, might turn the heat up a little bit. I think other spotlight might be shined on, say, Brandon Beane, obviously, for making his comments
Beane
that
goes
he did
first.
on WGR.
Beane came in second. I think Beane goes first.
Yeah. And Joe Brady might also be on the chopping block, especially with the way the offense performed this year.
So 2 things there. Number one, I think McDermott stays if they lose to Jax, but I think they now slide him into the, like, okay, you're John Harbaugh or Mike Tomlin at this point. Like, if the series deteriorates one more year, you're gone. I mean, there was a meme going around the internet of the goalpost in Pittsburgh. I don't know if you guys saw it. And
I did see that.
Right,
yeah, that's great.
Harbaugh fired, the middle was Tomlin fired. That's kind of how it would feel for McDermott. I'm curious what you guys think because I'm fascinated. I think McDermott's an okay coach. He's not McVay, to say the least. He's not Shanahan. He's not these guys, but he's an adequate to above average coach. I think that. Should that stop them from improving? No. If they can find a better guy, walk him out tomorrow. However, if I acknowledge that this roster is pretty thin on talent, and I honestly don't know anyone who thinks this roster is super talented, not a Bills fan in that group. I would say there's degrees of it, but we're not looking at the most talented roster in football by any stretch. How do you separate the Joe Brady versus Brandon Beane? Like, that to me is the more nuanced debate there, at least in the respect of like who goes first, because an OC is always easy to kick to the curb. I get that. But I'm just talking in terms of like accountability in the blame game. Where do you slot in terms of Joe Brady didn't do enough with what he had, which I think there's a reasonable argument there. These can coexist versus Brandon Beane didn't give him all the ingredients in the recipe. What do you guys think? I think that's more fascinating than the McDermott thing.
I do completely agree with that because Beane pounded the table saying, we have the wide receivers on here. Look what I did. I got Elijah Moore, who's now not even on the roster anymore. Denver's practice squad. Re-signing Gabe Davis off the street, just onto the practice squad, made his way onto the 53. Getting Brandon Cooks, who is 32 years old.
Guys off the couch.
Yeah,
Great.
and
You mean wide receiver one, Brandon Cooks?
yeah, no kidding. Hey,
Field
who got
stretcher.
he got the veteran rest day on Sunday. But speaking of Sunday, I know Carl wanted to kind of talk about a little retrospective on Highmark this past week too. So
Yeah, I mean that's definitely a big part of a lot of our lives growing up in Buffalo is that building right there. I mean, the good news is the new one's right across the street, so a lot of that atmosphere is not going to be going. But obviously, just coming off the last game in that stadium, what are some memories you got? I mean, I grew up in Orchard Park, so I got like
No, you got a lot more than me.
yeah,
This is a very random. It may not even be my most pronounced memory, but my buddy, he also a New Yorker, but a Bucks fan, family tree and blah blah blah. And I took him. He really started loving Josh Allen as a player, and so I took him up to a Bills. The last game, ironically, I didn't know this at the time. The last game I'd go to at the old stadium they played the Dolphins early in the season. It was like a September game, and they obliterated them. I think they scored 40 some odd points against them. It was a blowout. But football fan, just like us, where you're never going to change allegiances like that. Like, you know, I'm a Bucs fan, blah, blah, blah. Going to that game, the atmosphere, like the fan base, it's impossible to, in my opinion, to articulate sometimes. Like I go to other games, other teams, I have a great time, but it's the weird like community element of it. It just doesn't exist in a lot of places anymore. And that was always to me my best memory of it because, you know, thinking back to your question, right? Like he was leaving the game. He was like, I'm getting a Bills jersey on the way out. Like he's like, he's
converted him.
yes.
And by the way, he doesn't know this, and I lied through my teeth because he's a good friend and he would literally Venmo me. But the moment the Tyler Shuck couldn't pull the Saints out of the abyss and the Bucks were eliminated, I sent him a Bills shirt on Amazon, get him geared up for the playoffs. So
there you go.
I think it's just like the relationships, the community. I think the one thing you said, Carl, that I couldn't agree more with is like a new stadium's always great. I don't know, you've been to SoFi, Allegiant Stadium in Vegas, Jerry World. You go to these places, they're like cathedrals. It's ridiculous. They're all nice, right? I think one of the very cool things, though, about this, or one of the important things unique to Buffalo, is you're not just going to pick a spot and put a stadium. Like that area of the city, that's where a football stadium, it feels like it belongs. Right? It's the same thing as like when you go to Pasadena and go to the Rose Bowl. It's like you can't move the Rose Bowl anywhere other than where it is. Right? There's foothill mountains. This guy's got a house that overlooks the stadium, but it's like it's become legendary. And that the location to me is, if you can't have the original stadium, you got a new stadium in the same spot. By the way, it's what the Yankees did, right? Right in the Bronx. They could have picked 1,000 nicer areas in the Bronx or New York City. They stayed in South Bronx.
It wouldn't feel right otherwise. I mean, I will miss the stadium though. I mean, it's basically just a hunk of concrete, but I love that. I love that hunk of concrete. I mean, it's
our
gonna be
hunk
cool
of concrete.
The cool one, the cathedral. But yeah, no, it's great memories, and looking forward to.
Yeah. Travis, got a couple more quick ones before we let you go here. First one is I know you're an Ironman athlete. I wanted to maybe get into a little bit, maybe another time, about your race resume of sorts. But I ran D3 cross country in college, still try and dabble in running where I can there. Done a handful of marathons, even a couple ultra marathons. So kind of getting away from Bills and Sabres talk here. So an Ironman race might someday be on the bucket list. And even for mine and Sean's father as well, he's a big endurance athlete. But obviously that's a huge commitment. So what advice do you have? Because obviously I know you're a big triathlete guy and you're Ironman. What advice do you have for endurance athletes who want to compete in that event someday?
Man, that's a great question. Number one, I don't care what your schedule is. I don't care what you believe. Get used to waking up super early, like super early, and not 4 days a week or 5 days a week, 7 days a week for 365 days. You're going to be waking up before you even think about the words sunrise. I had a big benefit in that regards. I've always been an early morning person. You catch me 9:30 at night, I'm dying. I'm yawning. I've always kind of been wired that way, but that really, people got careers, they got jobs, they got families, they got kids, whatever. You're a number one foolproof way of failing any training plan for any race would be, I'll get to it this afternoon and this evening. There are some people who make it work. I can't disagree with that, but the people who typically find the discipline in the early morning hours before everything in life starts, in my experience, are the people who actually thrive and succeed, and they can layer up on top of that. That's something I just kind of religiously believe. It sounds weird, but if you think about it in practice for a couple months, you'll kind of feel like, oh, that's what he meant. Because I'm missing a random Wednesday, I'm missing a random Friday because I had to stay late at work or whatever the case is. Like, you cannot even let that be in the equation. Triathlon, love, but found out that two things. Number one, and I love doing it. I realized I am not as nearly as competitive on the bike as I am running, and that's kind of a two-sided coin. I just never been a cyclist, and I am not the type of person. I'll go on a spin bike for a couple hours, but like there are people who live in areas of the country, and I do to a degree, but where you can just jump on a bike, super safe. You don't have to worry about a car wrecking you, and you can get on there and ride for hours. I would love that. To me, the risk reward there is just not worth it. So I do a lot of spinning for training on the bike. But like I've gotten to meet a lot of triathletes who they can generate insane power for hours and hours and hours at a clip and in cycling. Whereas as a runner, I'm like pretty decent distance runner. I did a 2:35 and a 2:37 in the marathon last year. Which is pretty competitive. And it's like, it's comical because people are like, that's like 20 minutes from like Olympic trials. And I'm like, yeah, 20 minutes from Olympic trials is like from here to Jupiter. I mean, 20 minutes is I'll never run 20 minutes faster.
That's just like unfathomable. So
it's too fast, and I'm too old and washed at this point. But I really enjoy I enjoy the competitive nature of it, and that I can finish top 5, top 10 in a race. Got to do all the great runs. I've done Boston many times. I've done Chicago. I've gotten to do a lot of different runs, see a lot of different areas of the country that way. The other thing that I would bring up, though, for anyone who's like, I don't give a shit about running your triathlon. I don't blame. There's days where I wake up where I'm like, I do not blame you. I'm with you. It is the best fixer or alleviator of stress that you will find. I fundamentally believe that, and maybe it is trading one stress for another. But if I'm going to get a crazy heart as a trade-off between those two, I'm going to make that trade every day. So that like the whole basis for why I got into it was, one, I've always been into competitive sports, but probably like 6 years ago, or actually right around the pandemic. Work stress, like most people, was through the roof. And I was like, I need to find a way to deload here. I wouldn't sleep in the whole 9 yards. And yeah, that's just an entry point. And that becomes just a distant memory now at this point in my life, 5-6 years forward. But if you've never, that thing that you hear from time, like, go for a walk, it'll help you feel like, it really is true. Like, it really can be as simple as going for a 20-minute walk to make you feel better. So there's your mental health kick, but I truly believe it.
There we go. Yeah. Another friend of the show, Adam Kennedy, says, let's be honest, all about the swim. That would be definitely my weakest area for sure.
Oh, yeah.
I'm not bad in the water, but the swim versus cycling thing, it really comes down to this. If I'm a slow swimmer compared to someone competitive, I'm 15 to 20 minutes in trail with them, which is insane, by the way. That's ridiculous. If I'm slow versus a competitive, a pro triathlete on the bike, I'm an hour and a half behind them, because you're on that bike for 110 miles versus 20, a mile and a half, 2 mile swim, whatever the event you're running is. And I hate open water swimming, to the Sharks comment, by the way. I love competitions that go through lakes and fresh water, because I cannot stand ocean swimming. There you go.
Right there with you. And one last thing before you go, Travis, give yourself a nice plug. And thank you so much for your time on here. I know you got a couple other obligations for this evening, but still, we appreciate your time and for making this your flu game for us too.
Man, I know. I'm a chop. You know what? Another thing that shall we do, the last truth in the men versus women debate, men are the biggest babies when they get sick. That is a fact. That is like something you should be taught at the age of 3. Like, men are children about being sick. Myself included.
My wife will agree with you.
I know she will. Take care, boys.
Yeah. Take care, Travis. Thanks so much,
Travis.
So that was Travis Yost from TSN. There to join us. So I know you had a couple prior obligations, but we thank him.
I really wanted to get I wanted to put him on the spot and get his prediction for how far the Bills go. Will the Sabres make the playoffs? We'll have to tweet at him.
Yeah, maybe back at him. That was fun though, man. He's what a good guy.
Yeah, awesome to have him on there too. But we wouldn't be a Step Brother Sports Show without having a Grind Our Gears segment, even without Travis in this case. So as you know, grind my gears, gentlemen. If you got an extra grind or some hate to lay, maybe even some folks in the comments section, feel free to let it rip too. Even if you want to give someone their flowers, brought to you by Larger Than Life Blooms, you know the drill. Carl, let it rip. Do you have any hate to lay, or do you have any flowers you'd like to give?
It's a good question. I feel like I'm going into this Bills game with like a good amount of zen. I know come Sunday I'm gonna be bouncing off the walls and like hating our drafting and hating everything else. But for now, I'm going into it with like a decent amount of level-headedness. And yeah, I mean, I guess on the Sabres side, I just don't know how we manage the cap moving forward without like taking meaningful steps back in talent. So, but that's just an existing problem, not really like a Kekalainen's fault or anything like that. But it still bugs me that we're like sitting here talking about how to sign Tuck, and that's just going to need to take a couple other roster moves. And they're like, oh, well, the Kings have $10 million in cap space and they could handle him. I'm like, why can't we handle him? Like, what? Like, this is so annoying. Why do we suck for so long and we just don't have the cap? But, and anyways, I guess that's still my
answer to that is D-men.
Yes.
Yeah.
Lots of money tied up in a D-men. You know what, though? They could potentially pull off a second Jack Eichel move where they would maybe trade Tuck and get slightly younger and slightly less expensive for a guy entering prime.
Yeah.
That
they might
I can
need
see
to
that
if they can't sign him or they can't figure it out. This also comes with some optimism. It's something I've been wanting to tell you guys. There are teams that on paper sell off before the deadline and still make the playoffs.
Yeah.
Hey, could be us. You never know. And Chris B chiming in again. RIP Commies Washington Commanders 2025 season. He's got a Let's Go Caps and Commies in 2026. So I like the nickname Commies for them because it could also just be just funny humor with the fact that you have actual commies going against like the more American sounding Washington Capitals just in the same city that's being played in. So that's always given me a good bit of a laugh there. But to kind of get back to the grind my gears, I know the Bills will drive us crazy this weekend, especially if they lose. But I'll go more on the positive side, especially after a fun little holiday season here. I'm going to give my flowers. This will be kind of a cop out here. I'm going to give my flowers to Nintendo here because my family and I have enjoyed the new Mario Kart because Santa gifted the family a Switch 2. So needless to say, my wife, my older son and I have kind of gone at it in Mario Kart for the last week or so now, and it's provided some real good fun. So thank you, Nintendo, for providing some good old-fashioned family
play a little
fun.
Mario Kart at the Mozilla.
Yes, Uncle Sean. Yes, better bring your A game for this weekend when you come here. So
as long as it's the same controllers.
Yeah, roughly the same
type thing. I do have a couple. I have two quick flowers to give. No gear grinding this week. Number one, I think needless to say, we have to give some flowers to the Sabres who, after putting the 10-game winning streak together, they really laid an egg. I think they were just kind of out of it, just mentally exhausted, or because when you have a long losing or winning streak that comes like that, you get a lot of the national attention focused on you, as it's justified. Everybody's talking about you, and obviously they just didn't have it last time out. You could just tell from pretty much puck job that they just didn't have it in them to be competitive in that game. So this next game was really telling in how they were going to bounce back. And I said it on X, like, just go out there and start a new winning streak. We'll take sustained winning streaks of 4, 5, 8, 10 if we could. I mean, who knows? Probably don't do that again, but who's to say we can if they can continue to play the style that they've been playing? I think it's sustainable. They're playing a playoff style of hockey. Granted, they, did cough up a couple goals in the third, but they hung on and won. So glad to see that they had the mental fortitude and toughness to start a winning streak and end that losing streak after one. The more
a well-timed reset
that,
with that timeout Lindy Ruff called too.
Yeah, I wrote that too. That was really, I was going to say that's probably, I'm sure Paul Hamilton talked about that in the post game. I would definitely bet you. But yeah, so there's that.
Yeah,
and
I was
also,
worried about that game too. That was an important game. That was an important game.
Right. Rangers on Thursday too.
Rangers, who we sometimes have tough times.
Potentially without Shesterkin as well. He had a groin injury pop up the other day.
He's out, and I believe also somebody else is out. Somebody big for them. Fox? No, somebody else is out too. There's two. They put two guys on IR today. One on LTIR and somebody on IR that we're not going to see either one, which is good. So that bodes well.
Jonathan Quicken in place of Shesterkin, by the way.
He's a good goalie. Second quick flowers. Chris, you know this. Carl is not aware of this yet. I wanted to give a quick shout out to good friend and a good friend of the pod, Marcus Dowden, former Buffalo Bill, who I'm pretty sure I'm allowed to talk about this now. Paperwork's been signed. Marcus, our good friend, acquired an equestrian center in Maryland, about an hour away from Chris Maz in Richmond. And I'll be traveling to go see Chris. A little more than that. Well, yeah, an hour and a half. Yeah. But and if 501c3 and not for profit, and Marcus and his crew, including myself, are going to be helping to do rehabilitation for horses.
No kidding.
So it's a pretty cool thing to get involved. Something I really like horse racing. I took Chris to the horse
the new Rosies for those tuning in Richmond. So yeah, there you go. You laid down a few bets.
We did.
It was a good
time.
Yeah,
just to be involved, finding a way. I told this to our parents yesterday. Trying to find a way to get involved in something that you're passionate about. This is something that's been kind of a long time coming. So it'll be exciting to have another reason to come down to Richmond in the area. So shout out to Marcus for getting involved with something pretty cool post NFL career.
That's amazing. Yeah. Sean, do you know my wife's from Saratoga Springs?
I did not know that. I'm a big fan of Saratoga.
Yeah, it's awesome. We go relatively
Traverse Day. We're going this summer.
Yeah. Well, I mean, before having kids, we would go like way more. Not that I wouldn't. Not that I'm above bringing kids.
Bring the kids.
Naps.
Watch a day sitter. We'll have a good time.
Yeah. I think once they get a little older, I think we'll start hitting our stride again. But yeah, let's plan.
It'd be fun to have a horse in the race, wouldn't it?
Yeah, it'd be very fun. It'd be very fun. I like
literal
that.
horse in
That's
the race.
The goal.
Yeah.
That's
Chris
the goal.
B setting you straight there. Yeah, it'll be 3 hours minimum on I-95. But Sean is taking the
train.
Taking the
Amtrak.
So thankfully you won't deal with that. But yes, that would be more likely the travel distance and time with just driving of that. But to kind of wrap things up, put a nice little bow on it. Thank you to our over 1,000 viewers across all platforms tuning in. We appreciate that as always. But I want to give us a little bit of a plug for later this week when Sean does come visit. We are having our live show down at Rich Brow Brewing on Friday evening, 7 o'clock. If you want to come down in person, come see us. We also
down. I'm coming.
Yeah,
I'll leave my wife and 2 kids.
Yeah, come on down, Carl. It'd be great to have you. Yep. But come on down. You'll also get to see former Buffalo Bill Jerry Ostrowski.
Cool.
He is also going to be there to discuss the upcoming matchup against the Jaguars on Friday. There we go. Yep. So getting tanked and rowdy at Rich Brow on Friday. Hey, can't wait.
Got to get ready for the game.
Yes, got to get ready for the game Sunday at 1 o'clock. But still, Jerry will be there and talk about the game with us. Granted, he's appearing virtually for us, so we can talk to him there.
I was about to say he's coming. I didn't know that.
Wouldn't that be wild, right? But he agreed to give us a little bit of his time, which is great, especially on a Friday evening. We'll talk about the game, maybe just a little bit of retrospective look on the season itself, and maybe take a few audience questions as well. So got a big event looking forward to again on Friday, our 3rd show at Rich Brow for the season. So thank you to the folks over there who have been able to host us a few times. So again, with that, gentlemen, any parting thoughts before we wrap things up for the evening?
No. Sabres back on the warpath.
Nice episode. Go Sabres.
Yes, start the second streak on there, even after UPL decided to almost cough that one up for us. But hey, thanks to Josh Stone with that nice empty netter to seal the deal there. So with that, folks, like Carl just said, let's go Buffalo. Hope to see y'all on Friday if you're around the Richmond area. And hey, don't forget to tune in. Y'all take care. Have a good night.
Go Josh Allen.
Josh Allen.
Yes.